shadows in the dark. Don't trust what you cannot see. Touch your skin and it'll call your name. It's just the past that looks back at me. Left your home just to get away, but you took the buses with you. Set things up just to break them down. Keeps your mind down, nothing new. There's no inspiration. Media actually does. Gone up saviors. Government hunts them down. There's no inspiration. Media actually does. Gone up saviors. Government hunts them down. Yeah. All that's left for you to see is a reflection of myself. All that I've been taken by someone else. Taken by someone else. Taken. Yeah. Watch out for TV, high on dope. My nights are Lucy reruns. Talk shows up the current hit. Sanction self-indulgent numb. Throw away what you got. Blame what's missing from your life. It's not your fault things worked out this way. It's someone's mother, daughter, wife. There's no inspiration. Media actually does. Gone on saviors. Government hunts them down. There's no inspiration. Media actually does. Gone on saviors. Government hunts them down. Yeah. All that's left for you to see is a reflection of myself. All that I've been taken by someone else. Taken by someone else. Taken. Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am Cheese Slice, the engineer and producer of Left on Left here on Pasta to Go. Today, we're going to have an interesting show for you today. We've got Celia Farber, who's going to be joining us. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and introduce our hosts. And we have Gloria and Jeremy. How you guys doing?
Hey, Jamie. Hey, Jeremy.
For those of you watching at home, if this is the first time you've seen our show, what we are doing is recording a 1-hour radio show for WBAI and the Progressive Radio Network. And so you're getting to see how everything is done behind the scenes. And that's what this show is about. So Gloria is, she kind of leads the show. Jeremy is the expert on the subjects. And then oftentimes we have a guest like we do today. So let's bring her on. Hello, how you doing today, Celia?
Hey, Celia.
Hi, everyone.
So just so everybody at home understands, that's what we're doing today. This is a radio show. So I hope you enjoy it. And let's get to it. So take it away, Gloria.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Left on Left, where the left critiques itself and laughs out loud to keep from crying. I'm Gloria Guillo, a former administrator in New York City government, an investigative journalist, vice chair at WBAI Radio, and a co-founder of Green Renaissance Sovereign Rights Movement, a group so left it's right on. I'm joined here today by our resident expert, Jeremy Kuzmarov. Jeremy is a professor at Tulsa Community College, a historian, investigative journalist, and managing editor of Covert Action Magazine, an online magazine that focuses on CIA and deep state activity. Our producer and engineer is Jamie Cheeslice. The opinions you hear are ours and that of our guest, not those of WBAI, the Pacifica Foundation, or the Progressive Radio Network. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as professional or medical advice. Listeners are encouraged to form their own opinions. Today's guest is Celia Farber. She's an author and investigative journalist. Celia calls herself a war correspondent, and the main war she's lived through and covered in detail between 1987 and 2008 was HIV. Her expose concerning Anthony Fauci's HIV tyranny and how it demolished true biology and science in America appeared in Spin and later in Harper's. It resulted in Celia being targeted through vicious discrediting campaigns. Her work rose to prominence again in 2020 as COVID was understood to have been modeled on the terror and fake science she and others documented in AIDS. Mark Crispin Miller called Celia's work journalism at its best, and Bob Guccione Jr., Spin magazine publisher, calls her work groundbreaking. We agree with them and many, many others, and are thrilled to welcome her to our show. The title for our show today is MK Ultra, Israeli Embassy Patsy Shooter, as American as Apple Pie. Our audience knows that one of our favorite and perverse topics here at LOL is MK Ultra. So when Celia wrote 2 articles debunking the prevailing narrative of the shooting and detailing facts that come right out of the CIA's PSYOP playbook, we jumped on board. On the evening of May 21st, a crowd gathered at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. The occasion was young diplomats' reception that was hosted by the American Jewish Committee. Diplomats, staffers, and community leaders mingled under soft lights and high security. Among the guests were 2 Israeli embassy staffers, Sarah Milgram, age 26, and Yaron Lachinsky, age 30. At 9:08 p.m., just after they exited the building, a man open-fired with a handgun that emptied 20 rounds. No warning, no demands. Milgram and Lachinsky were hit multiple times and died at the scene. The alleged gunman, 31-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, was tackled by private security and arrested within seconds. It appeared like a brutal, tragic, politically charged shooting. But then something happened that shifted the entire atmosphere from criminal to theatrical. As reported by multiple outlets during the chaos, Rodriguez allegedly dropped a red kaffir scarf. On camera, an unidentified man attempted to hand it back to him, but the scarf was instead snatched by another unidentified man. However, in seeing the red scarf, Rodriguez seemed to remember to blurt out a chant used by protesters at demonstrations, especially ones that take place at universities: "Free, free Palestine." In that moment, he transcended from being a shooter to a symbol. Instantly, this became more than a crime. It became a visual that stoked the narrative that Jewish people are targets and the Palestinian cause is violently anti-Semitic. It stood Israel's genocide campaign against Palestinians and protesters on its head. It provided every corporate newscaster the opportunity to wave an Israeli flag and ignore the carnage in Gaza. Those of us in the know from studying the hallmarks of suspected MK Ultra shootings saw in real time the emergence of a familiar script: a highly disturbed, unstable shooter, a highly symbolic target, a post-event slogan or statement, a piece of costuming, and a rapid media-wide deployment of the narrative. A shooter in no hurry to leave the scene of the crime. These aren't simply shootings, they're messaging events, psychological theater. Let's go back. At minimum, we have Sirhan, Mark David Chapman, John Hinckley Jr. We're expecting Jeremy to tie this all together for us. This is what MK Ultra was designed to perfect, not cartoonish, mind-controlled, but behavioral conditioning and narrative delivery. A subject triggered to perform symbolic actions, a scene designed to hijack public emotion. So, what's the real questions here? Not who pulled the trigger, but who wrote the script, who picked up the scarf, who snatched it from him, who positioned the camera, who planted the phrase. Because if Elias Rodriguez was just a man with a gun, he shouldn't have been silenced and cuffed, not recostumed and rebranded for mass consumption. Celia Farber reminds us we have to penetrate the ostensible, a phrase she credits to her illustrious father, Barry Farber, to understand how violence is used, by whom, for what, and why. Because that scarf wasn't a garment, it was a prop. And the person who handed it back to him knew exactly what role it played. Thank you. Cecilia, please take it away and explain all the details in your lovely article and introduce yourself a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. You write the best introductions. I was really so riveted. That was wonderfully done. And you've set us up for a very rich conversation. So, yeah, I actually have a prop. Speaking of props, I have my book here. I don't usually have a copy, but my main book is called Serious Adverse Events and Uncensored History of AIDS, which tracks the true scientists during those years who were beside themselves, despairing, as an op rolled over science itself, biology itself, namely Robert Gallo's deadly AIDS virus that came from a monkey in Africa, so on and so on. So that's that. And who I am, I've always been a writer, investigator, investigative journalist, always print, wrote for those magazines, some of them you mentioned, and now I write entirely for my readership at Substack, and my Substack is it's called The Truth Barrier, and the address is celiafarber.substack.com. Just to get that out of the way. So I do write about PSYOPs regularly. I'm not somebody who, all of AIDS was a PSYOP. So you could say I spent maybe 25 plus years just on that one. I'm going to keep saying either so-called or in quotes, but okay, the DC shootings really caught my attention because of how ham-fisted and, as you said, straight out of the playbook they were. So I didn't want to do it because I felt like, oh, why am I doing this? Because as soon as you climb down into an op, it's just a bruisey, hopeless, dark experience. And as I say in my opening to, I think it was the second piece, I want to be clear that correcting an op, correcting the glaring lies, and there aren't mistakes, they're lies, does nothing to impede or slow down an op. An op does not depend upon facts. It is built out of something else entirely. So in other words, my self-contradiction going in was, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I went in and just zoomed in on, so who were these people? Let's look at their Facebook pages. Let's see their social media history. Let's see their parents. Let's see potentially, their funerals. And everywhere I looked, it just came up ranging from strange to inexplicable. So I want to stress, as I did in both pieces, that my objective was not to prove that this didn't happen, that it didn't happen the way they said it did, but just to establish patterns of the op. And Gloria, you're such a wordsmith. Do you have other words for op? Because maybe I should be. It's really, well, it's this dark dark media theater, as you said, designed to hijack mass emotion. But we'll just call them ops. Is that what you guys call them when you talk about them?
we refer to PSYOPs.
PSYOPs.
I just the facts that you pull together, saved me so much labor. I mean, I was just like, wow, she got this, she got that, she got this. And it was so easy to follow along because your analysis is so targeted. Some things in particular you brought to my attention, the whole red scarf thing. The fact that you couldn't find any reports on these people. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
The social media stuff. It was weird.
Yeah, I feel that there are so many people who are just masters at deconstructing ops, and as I say, I have a history with it, but it's not really the granular so much. What I trying to remember now what I was going to say. Okay, one of the things that really jumps out and really jumped out with this one, it's and I'm going to add one more thing before I go into this. The way I look at ops for the last couple of years is I look at it through a lens of monarch mind control, and everything I'm learning about monarch mind control is through a particular Twitter account. He's extremely obscure, like nobody ever seems to see his tweets. His name is Tim Baber. He's in Britain, and half the time you can't even really understand what he's talking about, but he taught me about colors and clothing and shapes and all these things. For example, that all this whole range of tools comes together when they blast our eyes and ears that are actually themselves known to have a certain hypnotic effect, which I know it sounds insane, but I know you won't think I'm insane. Colors, red and black combined together, stripes, then we have that. So, and this gets into Masonic symbolism and a lot of things where, again, there are so many people out there who are greater experts. So I'm just trying to take a fairly generalized view and say, okay, how did we know it was an op? Well, this one checked every single box, but I feel like the first thing you know is that you're being assailed by something very threatening. You feel very guilty if you doubt any of it. So there's a kind of bristling violence around the whole thing. It always comes with a heavy cargo of precisely that which the manipulating powers that be have as a kind of fantasy. In this case, pro-Palestinian protesters are actually evil, actually psychotic, actually now homicidal, very dangerous, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the most obvious top level of it, or I will say base level of it. The other thing that's pretty obvious is you see it, boom, it goes out in every single mass media. It's a huge story. It's that synchronized reportage where they say the same phrases over and over and over. The emotions attached to it are uniform. What feels like kind of almost factory made despair, factory made, anti-Semitism on the rise, and Jews don't feel safe anywhere. So nothing is reported as a news story. It's reported as a huge emotional catastrophe. And there's an atmosphere of don't you dare say one word against it. And then they all pile in and they just kind of keep putting this emotional gas in the story all the time. And the facts get, if they ever existed, they're only kind of used as symbolic props. They're never drilled down on. For example, nobody ever talks about, well, why and how and were they shot and how long did it take for the police to get there and what did the autopsy show? All of that goes away it's like a big broom comes in and sweeps it away, and the media just carries on in this dance of, it's not a dance, what's the word in this? Well, it's like an indulgence of kind of reinforcing emotionally what they've been saying. So ops always come out of previous ops. They're always birthing each other. So all of the pressures and accusations and guilt trips that people who oppose Israel's actions in Gaza were already feeling were all coincidentally fulfilled in this op. Okay, so another feature is the victims are always perfect or beyond perfect, as was the case here. They were always just had absolutely everything going for them. In this case, there were actually variations of this. Were they engaged? And then it turned out, no, they were about to be engaged. And the embassy knew that he was going to propose to her. And the embassy supposedly told his father, I don't know if, yeah, I think I did put that in the piece. I went and there's one interview with the father that's going around. And as I'm looking at all this the whole time, and even now, I'm feeling like I really shouldn't be saying this. I really shouldn't be looking at this. I'm a terrible person because, and this is the power of the op, it sort of functions both as, well, it could have happened, but all these things are super unlikely and unexpected and don't fit. But the op power wants you to just forget all that and just kind of go with the flow. Does that make sense? It's like live action psychological warfare.
I was at a Gary Null retreat. We both know Gary. I think you probably know him even better because you've worked with him with a lot of the AIDS, HIV stuff, I believe, and also I guess with the COVID narrative and Bobby Kennedy and things like that. But so I'm in a hotel room when this is happening, and the only station I could really get on the TV was Fox News, and every night I was there for about 2 weeks, and every night there was Fox News talking about this couple, this beautiful, beautiful couple with their whole life ahead of them and how they're getting married and they're engaged. And, right away I was like, huh? Like, we want to know, how did this guy get access to them? I mean, you can't get anywhere as near an Israeli event without being pat down and searched for guns and weapons. I mean, it's tight. You can't get anything. So, how did this guy get access to this, restricted area? And then, we don't want to know how lovely this couple is. We want to know how many times they were shot. What was the reports, and how did this happen? So right away, just hearing this, gushing about this couple, made me wonder. So then when I saw your article come out, I was like, oh, thank God someone's writing about it. And I don't have to do the research line by line. Somebody else has done the work. And, the things that you brought up were really intense. You talked about, just how this couple had no media presence. And I'd like you to talk about that, because I think in many of these cases, we see situations where, the person all of a sudden has no identity on the internet, or it's like a ghost identity. I think that was the word you used, which I thought was very accurate. This kind of ghost presence in media that is there and nothing else. And gaining any other details really doesn't exist. And then you also talked about what's missing, from like the police reports and, the timing of the event and things like that, which are very factual. And both Jeremy and I, we love facts. We love actually, when investigators such as yourself go in and look at the reports and see, why is this missing? So please walk us through, you kind of unraveling this step by step, line by line. Thank you.
Let me just tell you, I'm plugging my microphone back, and I had to just take a moment to charge my laptop there. Okay, there we go. Yeah, thank you for that, Gloria. Brilliantly Brilliantly summed up. So I'm going to talk for a moment now about, this is one thing where I do feel like maybe it's my find. I don't know if other op investigators have found this particular thing. I happened upon it about 3 years ago, and it's this phenomenon of ghost Facebook pages, potentially invented people. Potentially invented people. So I feel compulsed to say, I'm not saying these people didn't exist. Right now, I'm just talking about that there's a phenomenon of these strange Facebook pages. And where they are, yeah, they're people that don't seem to exist, but they have Facebook pages, and they have very clearly delineated, I guess I would say, identities. So I'll give you an example how I happened upon it. It was back in the at the peak of COVID hysteria. And there was a story that went all around the world's media. I think it started maybe within the UK press. And the story was that there was a couple, married couple, and both of them had dropped dead from COVID on the same day, or rather, sorry, he had died in the hospital. His wife had come home and dropped dead. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't remember the details, but it was like a horror film. Like, they're just dropping dead. Both of them died, or maybe she came home and found him dead. It was like really, really terrible. And I looked at this and I thought, and it just had everything in it. Again, it was like front loaded. The cargo was people who voted for Trump. They didn't say that outright, but you could tell from the caricatures. They voted for Trump. They're COVID deniers, and they didn't believe in COVID. And now, because they didn't believe in COVID and weren't afraid of it, it struck them both and they're dead. So I went to look for them online, and I had help with my brilliant friend, Colleen McGuire, who's just, you know her too, our mutual friend, and a couple of other people. We were actually a research team, and I'm sorry to say we stalled out on this because for various reasons, but we're all talking about maybe bringing it back because we did a lot of research into these ghost pages. So what we found, so we went in different directions, like some of us looking at her and some of us looking at him. And what came up was, first of all, their entire presence on Facebook was as though written by a really bored subdivision at the CIA deciding to invent really embarrassing MAGA stereotypes. Like, he had this big, beer belly. He's got his shirt off. He's got a fishing rod and a beer. And it's like, MAGA, Trump. But you can just tell these are not real people. It's like how you would draw MAGA if you never spoke to a MAGA person, if you just had complete and utter contempt. And the wife had like a nail salon, and it was all these garish long fingernails and kind of, it's really difficult to put your finger on, but you just look at these pages and you just go, these are not real people. And then you look at, so after allegedly they dropped dead, there should be all these people like, oh my God, I spoke to her just yesterday. So you don't see people or friends or family or anything. You never find, as was the case with these people, there's no obituary, there's no memorial service, it's just a bad high school play on the internet. It's not real. And then you realize, yes, okay, so that's how they do it, and that's why they do it. They wanted to condition people, don't be one of these Trump-loving right-wing gloobs that because they love Trump, they don't think COVID is so bad. I don't know if you remember in the beginning, Trump was, before Warp Speed and everything, he was cast as a COVID denialist because he was having these press conferences saying, and they were actually perhaps some of his sanest moments. And he was just saying, well, people get better. They get out of the hospital when they take this and that, and they're fine. Okay. So then we knew, okay, so it's sort of like if you find one ghost Facebook page, you're onto a phenomenon. I felt like, I know this is a major tool in their toolkit. And I know how it works because we all just think, because I saw a picture and because I read some words and I was told a story like a fairy tale, it hits us. It's like this amygdala bypass thing. Like it just goes straight in. And that is the soul and essence of an op. It hijacks, as you said. That was your great word, hijack. Okay, I don't want to go out into the weeds too much. You asked me specifically to talk about what may. Yeah, I wish I had a printout of.
I printed out a lot of the stuff from your article because it's so detailed that
Okay, you're gonna have to help me.
I figured I'd have to lead you through it because it's just so good. And
yeah,
it's
let's
so,
go
it's
like
so,
box by box down the list.
it's so action packed. Well, one of the other things
I'm sorry,
you said,
Gloria. Sorry, I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to say, and these two individuals, this beautiful couple, they had straight up ghost pages, but really ghost pages where, let's call it the CIA or Mossad. They didn't even bother to try to make them look real. So then I said to myself, well, maybe they just aren't, they're too young. They're not really Facebook people. But wherever I looked for and we'll go down the list right together. I'm going to need your help. But there was no funeral for her. There was this very bizarre alleged funeral for him. Get this, at Ben Gurion Airport was supposed to be like this flash funeral. Like it's, and then people, and okay, so there was one clip from, again, they don't have like people who should be rushing in. She was my best friend. She's my daughter. They only have the one clip, like the grieving father. And here's where, again, I get back to like, I feel so guilty saying this, but that father, did you see that clip with the father? It just seemed.
I didn't see that one. Oh,
very,
boy.
Okay, let me choose
Heartfelt.
my words
I think maybe I
carefully.
saw it on Fox, actually. I didn't see it. I know it was a link in your article, but I
Yeah.
didn't revisit
Okay,
it. But
well,
I recall from Fox.
Yeah, like where any human being pulls back is like, who are we to say that's not exactly what a grieving father should sound like? So I'm actually not going to do that. I'm just going to point to some very odd things. For example, he said, the embassy, I keep harping on this, called me and told me that Yaron was going to propose and had bought a ring, and they were going to go to Israel in a couple of weeks. So it's like, this is your daughter and you didn't know she was going to Israel? Like none of it brings down the plane.
Why would the embassy know? If you're going to propose, usually you tell your friend. I mean, why would the embassy report that,
Or your dad, I think.
Usually you don't tell your parents before, only after. I mean, maybe a best friend. But most people, before they propose, don't want to jinx it and tell anybody.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I don't know if you guys read, there were articles that came out. Oh, I knew Yaron, and he was just the most. I met him at such and such conference. He was the most amazing, gracious, brilliant. Spoke all these languages. Just wanted to save the world. Just wanted to do good for everybody. Like they're always like that. I mean,
you need a perfect victim for this to really, tug at your heartstrings, and you have to. They were getting married. Oh my God.
And she was on a clip 7 years ago on television saying she didn't feel safe as a Jew because of graffiti, something had happened somewhere. Now, what are the chances? Right.
Well,
but
I think
again, like op hunters, you're left with just this pile of anomalies, but the op has already struck. It's like a hit and run. It's already done its thing. It's moved on. It doesn't care about any of these corrections because an op is a hit and run. It's like boom, and it has its impact, and it's almost like you feel like a damn fool to sit around and tinker with this stuff.
Well, also, as you said, you feel guilty. I mean, anyone who's killed, I mean, your heart goes out to them, their family, their loved ones, but when you start uncovering these things that don't make any sense, like these ghost pages without any you'd think there'd be a tremendous amount of people saying, yeah, oh my God, these are perfect people. So where's all of this friendship on the pages? Where's the people posting, the
Yes.
RIPs and things like that?
Where are
So
their friends
Yeah,
sounding
they're
like real
friends.
people?
Exactly. Yeah. Because
So, and one of the things I think maybe Jeremy has even said this in the beginning of the show, but a lot of people who track these things that a lot of people consider false flags notice that some of these people are considered crisis actors, and they see them reappearing in other events, other mass casualty events. You just see kind of a revolving door.
Right.
Like
Right.
this week's it's Seinfeld, that week it's some other sitcom. You just keep seeing them appearing. So that's another thing. But one of the key things that you spoke about that really got me was, why wasn't this reported at the correct time? I mean, these are police matters. The police know when a shooting happens, especially if it's a highly publicized shooing. It should be on the
It wasn't
blotter
in the police.
immediately.
It wasn't in the blotter. It wasn't in the DC Metropolitan Police on their website. They list every single crime from a robbery. It's all listed. And this one was not there. And that was what got me propelled for the first piece, because I was going, aha, now this is truly strange. That was sort of the premise of the first piece. Then the next day in that space, they had listed, instead of a crime report at such and such time, a gunman shot 2 people, blah, 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 there was a press release from the Attorney General. Wait, now I can't remember. You have the article there. Anyway, there was a press release about the murders that wasn't quite, in other words, it stuck out. This was at a link where all that was listed were dry, factual police, like every crime that occurred in DC on that day. So the press release turns up the next day. And then finally you have something that begins to resemble a criminal actual report. And it is logged at 6 hours later than the time we were told this thing happened. So it says that this shooting happened at 3 a.m. And again, you kind of go, well, maybe they just made someone typed it in wrong. And you have to just keep doing that and keep doing that, because.
But I mean, these high profile cases, they wouldn't, they would take pains to do a proper investigation. If they know it's going to be a high profile case, they've got to, put their best men on the job and do a thorough job if this was legitimate, So, I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, how could they be so sloppy? And that's what you see when you study the pattern. Yeah, like James Fetzer is a former Marine who's done some systematic investigation into a lot of these incidents. And that's what he finds. Yeah, what you're finding in this case, these ghost Facebook pages, that there's no track record of these people. And he's a private investigator who has some resources, and he can never find, any verification that these are real people. And then the Facebook page, yeah, sometimes like he did with the Sandy Hook, the family there was something wrong in the family. Like on the surface, it looked like a normal family, but then when you look closer, there's something wrong, and it's clear the photo was staged, or then, yeah, you see it's an actor that was known from somewhere else. And that starts to raise the red flags. So, and that's, like with the police investigation. I mean, even if you look at the Kennedy assassinations or others, the police, did such a horrible job. So then you're left with the question, are the police just totally incompetent, or is somebody pressuring them from above that makes them? And it's usually obviously the latter, because often these police are competent in most cases. It's just they've been pressured in these cases, and threatened or intimidated and told what to do, and it doesn't follow a normal police pattern. So, But maybe you can say something about the shooter, what we
Yeah,
know
I was
about
just
him.
thinking that, Jeremy.
Elias
Let's talk about
Rodriguez,
him.
and they set him up that he's this leftist guy. What do we actually know about him, and what do you think might have happened with him?
Just before you say that, Jeremy, how many times is a shooter linked to communism? I mean, isn't that like one of the requirements? And then the other thing for these, PSYOPs is that there has to be a manifesto. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
well,
how
they
many of
usually,
us have a manifesto in
like
our
with the
in our
Oswald. I mean,
closet?
it's worth studying the Kennedy assassination because they create a legend. So they created this legend of Oswald as this leftist, Soviet pro-communist who was behind the Kennedy assassination. So they had him infiltrate the Fair Play for Cuba committee, which was a left-wing group, opposed to U.S. foreign policy in Cuba, and they had him arrested so that his name would be in the paper, so they can point to, oh, look, he was arrested because he got in a fight when he was with the Fair Play for Cuba, and somebody was harassing him, and he got in a fight. So that they cultivated this image, and the Oklahoma City bombing, which we've had episodes about, and I done extensive research into that topic. And they created a legend of Timothy McVeigh as this white nationalist, because that's the narrative they wanted to advance, that he was this white nationalist who was trying to avenge Waco, and it reflected this right-wing extremism, when really it was a much larger plot that he was part of, and he was set up as a patsy, as we've discussed on this show. But they had to cement this impression even among members of his own family, and they had him associated with various right-wing groups. And McVeigh was in the Special Army unit, and he was told by his major exactly what to do, where to go, what to write and say. So, in these past cases, which we have a lot of documentation of, and this we're just learning more about this case, but on the surface, it seems to potentially fit the pattern describing. So maybe this guy, maybe he was a leftist. I think he had written for some left-wing publication. Didn't he even write for The Nation magazine? Or
So what was said about him was that he had been part of a socialist revolutionary group. The name escapes me. Gloria, you have the
PSL.
right. And they were like, no, we haven't, seen this guy for 7 years.
And that group is heavily infiltrated. Gloria knows all about that.
Yeah, they have Roy Singham. I forget what's his first name. Something else, but his last name is Singham. Roy something Singham, and he funds PSL. He funds Answer Coalition. He funds the People's Forum in New York City.
And Code Pink. And I mean, they were
Code
attacking
Pink.
Code Pink. They were trying to present this narrative of Code Pink as like pro-Chinese agents. So this, would be a way to discredit Code Pink. I mean, they could achieve a lot. If this is a black op, they can discredit all these groups that are, I mean, anemic as they may be, because our show is Left on Left, and we often criticize these left-wing groups. Their strategy is off. They're infiltrated, but nevertheless, they are a left. They are opposing U.S. imperialism, U.S. wars. So it's a convenient way to discredit them by having him linked to them. Along with what you were describing at the beginning, Gloria, that this shows, that this is real. There is real anti-Semitism. And look, this is like, now we know the invasion of Iran is taking place. So this is happening just a month or so before that invasion. They've got to get the public in line with that, and depict these pro-Palestine protesters as anti-Semites, and marginalize them or ridicule them. So
yeah, regarding him, I didn't look too deeply into him because I just drew a blank when I saw the footage, where, and you've all seen it, right, where he drops the keffiyeh, and then the other guy who's the main eyewitness sort of politely hands it back to him, and then super weirdly leans against the wall and just kind of, it's like a
But I
Was
watched
he-
that.
It's just
I,
super
I,
weird.
I
So I don't
probably
know
watched.
anything about it. Yeah.
I
sorry,
probably
go
watched that like 50 times. I didn't see him drop
ahead.
it. Maybe there is some video
Oh,
of him
maybe he didn't.
dropping
Yeah,
it,
maybe he
but
didn't
I
drop
don't see him drop it. What I see is it's on the floor, and the guy you're referring to, who's leaning against the wall, steps forward, picks it up off the floor, and then this other dude interferes, grabs it, and takes it and runs away with it.
Oh, you're
But
right.
but after I've watched it like 50 times, and I found it through your article, and what was really curious about that whole thing is that, to me, it seemed like what Jeremy has talked about in other episodes. It seemed like that was the polka dot dress. Because
Yes.
right after he got that, and Jeremy, talk about the polka dot dress, because right after he got that, he went into free Palestine.
Yes. And he
And
glitches a little. He's like
it's like he
glitchy.
didn't remember that. And he didn't
He
say that
glitches.
before. Yeah. And
Right.
he didn't pull the trigger and say free Palestine.
It's
He
like
didn't walk
watching
up
a
to
high
him.
school play where someone's like, "What's my line?" Oh, and then he remembers, and he likes free Palestine. It's just so utter. But now when we watch that, because of what you were saying, you caused me to see one more layer of this. Now let's think of it this way: if this is real and real life, and there are police, and there's a guy, and there's handcuffs, and there's chaos, who picks up a kefir or anything else and hands it to, like, it just is not normal human. None of it is organic human stuff, conduct, right?
Yeah.
Very strange. Yeah. So talk about the polka dot dress, because I've read about that and I know, but what I'll say, what I know from like base level knowledge about MK Ultra is that there will be a garment or patterns or a phrase or a slogan or something that is the trigger to do whatever it is the program to do.
Exactly. Well, in that case, yeah, because Sirhan, we have a lot of knowledge about that case. That was his trigger. There was a woman in a polka dot dress at the Ambassador Hotel. On the night Kennedy was shot, and that was Sirhan's trigger. When he came in contact with her, and maybe she said something to him, that was kind of his cue. And we know that he had been hypnotized and kind of commanded to. Well, it's believed that he was firing a blank, because the real shooter, he was there just to create a diversion, and then he was set up as the patsy. The real shooter of Robert Kennedy was likely a guy named Thane Eugene Cesar, who shot him from behind. Sirhan was in the front, like at a distance.
Yep.
And it's likely his gun may have fired blanks or caps, but yeah, that was the trigger under his hypnosis. So we don't know about this guy Rodriguez, his background. Maybe he was, hypnotized. And well, you're suggesting we don't even know in this case if a shooting actually took place.
We actually don't. It's like falling. It's like falling into the arms of Venus de Milo, right? It's like just emptiness upon emptiness, and you have nothing really firm to stand on or start with. It's all kind of faintly ghostly assumptions. So as far as I got with him, while the op was still ongoing, the media, and often it's the UK media that kind of does a lot of our missing reporting for us. So somebody went to a house where his parents were alleged to live. Maybe his parents were divorced. Maybe it was just his father. But the word was they were too traumatized to speak. So I feel like what they did with that was they kind of did like due diligence. We tried to get a comment. Who is this guy? The parents are too traumatized to speak. Okay, that's the end of that. Now, another feature of an op is how quickly they sweep it off the stage. Have you noticed? Why didn't all the media turn up at both of their funerals, memorial service and funerals? Why didn't they keep rubbing it in our faces? We horrible people who are at fault for all of this, right? Why didn't they do that? It was very, one and done.
Next.
And yeah, I mean, the friend, normally these are young people, so they're just out of school, so you'd have their friend. I mean, if they're going to do profiles of them, you figure they get interviewed, they track down their high school teachers or college.
The worst. Yeah.
So that you would expect that, and but if that's totally absent, you're saying, right? There's no.
Yeah, I kept asking Grok, is there a funeral? And Grok can be a very useful tool. Was there a funeral planned? And for several days, no funeral planned for either of them. Then I got this thing that there was going to be this quick airport funeral for Yaron at Ben Gurion Airport. And then I kept asking, was there a funeral for her? It kept saying no. Now, I should have checked again before we did this program, and I didn't. But if there was no funeral planned, then I don't know. It just, I regret not looking it up. If somebody wants to look it up.
I'm guilty too. I was going to do it and I forgot to do it. I'm guilty too.
And usually, for a death, people post online comments. So, and a lot of it is going to be the friend and family. So if there's no sign of any friend, either quoted in the media, quoted on an online page.
I've got one I want to throw in for you guys. Okay. Whenever we see this, okay, and I want to credit Jamie, our producer and engineer, for reminding me about this one. The shooters are never in a hurry to get the hell out of Dodge. Okay.
Right.
It's like they've just committed a murder and they're standing around. And I think, Jeremy, you could talk a little bit about some of the shooters. I think one was reading Catcher in the Rye.
Well, yeah, the Lennon shooting is clearly a side, and we had David Whalen, who did a very good study, who's a British author, and yeah, he said, well, firstly, yeah, it was another case where Chapman, the guy fingered for Lennon's murder, was at too far a distance, so he could not have actually been the killer, but he was set up as the patsy, and if he was, he could have easily escaped because it was near a subway. They said he could have easily got away and jumped on the subway, but yeah, he was just waiting around to be captured. And there's strong evidence. There's even connections, I think, with the Robert Kennedy. Like some of the same CIA psychologists were around Chapman and visited him in prison, like right after. And these are now known CIA, hypnotists who were also involved with Sirhan. And then they programmed him. They created this story about Catcher in the Rye, that he was obsessed with Catcher in the Rye, and that Lenin was the phony, because they wanted to demonize. You see the political agenda. They wanted to discredit the 60s movements and the peace movement. That's always the agenda. And Lenin was a symbol of that, and he was going to revive the peace movement in the 80s. That may have been a key motive behind his assassination. So they had Chapman saying, Lenin's a phony because he's not true to his principles because he lives in a nice apartment or something. But then, yeah, fitting with what you're saying, they dropped that right away. Within like a few days, you never heard of a guy who was supposedly obsessed with Catcher in the Rye. You never heard about that again. And then when there were interviews done with him in later years, nothing was ever said about Catcher in the Rye ever again. So it is believed that he had been a target of MK Ultra, because Whalen and some other researchers found all kinds of evidence regarding his background and the facilities he was in and his travels and connections that make it appear like he had been hypnotized. I mean, and sometimes it takes years of research, like you're saying. We're just at the preliminary phases with this event. It requires sometimes the researcher who has to really devote a huge amount of time. And, sometimes people, maybe with the passage of time, you may be able to get some people in the know, to say something. But yeah, this may be just one of many cases, like Gloria and I have discussed, that this is a strategy of the ruling elite these days, strategy of tension to get the public constantly on edge, to have these constant crises and manufactured incidents, and people suspend rational judgment. And you have to be suspicious about this killing that occurred of these Minnesota lawmakers, because some of the patterns you're saying are true. Like, even, a certain program Gloria and I love, we're making like these two lawmakers, were these saints. And actually she was, and, I'm not saying they deserve to be killed or anything, but I mean, you shouldn't idealize somebody, just because they were killed. It doesn't mean they were, killed unjustly, that they were a saint in life, but they make them like they're a saint, or that they were these liberal heroes, when actually her voting record was more on the conservative side, and some, rather dubious votes. But you see that, what you were describing, they're making like they're saints. There's a highly questionable background of the suspect. He was in Congo for 3 years working for a security company.
Yeah.
What's he doing in Congo? Private security company. I think he owned, like, he had a lot of wealth. Like, what is a guy like that all of a sudden, is going to murder some lawmakers and go to jail for the rest of his life? I don't know. I mean,
it was something funny that he had 2 vehicles for staff or something, and no staff. There's all these like weird elements.
And private citizens don't just go to Congo. I mean, that's a CIA, hotspot for the U.S. The mineral wealth there. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, people hopefully might do more research and uncover more. But there's also the case of Ryan Ralph, the guy who's accused of trying to assassinate Trump, was a mercenary in Ukraine, and he wrote this book. I read his book. And it was like, you could tell the book was written by the CIA. I mean, most of it was like these rambling statements. And then all of a sudden he would interject, "Oh, but Zelensky had to delay the elections." Like, are these the points the CIA wants you to believe?
Well, that's actually
like rambling stuff. And they tried to create this image that he was this like hippie type guy. But then they throw that in. Zelensky had to delay the elections. And this like Peruvian leader that the CIA was supporting, who's accused of like genocide, like, she's the greatest leader. Like, nobody's ever even heard of this leader, and he just like randomly. So anyway, it's just weird.
One thing I want to bring us back to is, 3 of us here love to write. Journalists, investigative. None of us have a manifesto. Who's got a manifesto? And then I think you brought out his manifesto was published after he was in jail.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that happen? Who's publishing his manifesto after he's in jail? And then the other thing is these people go into isolation when they go in prison. You can't reach them. They can't make a statement, that they're locked away.
Totally.
That's another thing in common. Like, they just vanish.
Is it time to play one of the clips that's in the first article? Maybe not, about either the one with Sarah's father, or the one with either of the 2 eyewitnesses, because I feel like they speak for themselves. Like, that's how you can see. I think we have an op here. Like, if you look at, or I could just describe it, and if we don't have time, or maybe you can see if you can call it up. But there's one with a man, he's got gray hair, and he was crying when he was describing, the tragic and loss of life. And I mean, maybe I'm a cynical monster, but I just thought, is that how people are when they're giving they witness something? Do they start crying, really? And it's sort of like all of it together. It's no one thing, except the main thing. I was just thinking about this a second ago. Like, you always have to think, wow, what an absolute unbelievable coincidence that when the entire Zionist industrial complex is just on and on and on and on about how none of us are taking anti-Semitism seriously enough. And then this thing, again, that alone doesn't prove it. But I feel like they make these ops actually too perfect, but also too sloppy. They're very sloppy, and they're very scripted. They're very ham-fisted, right? And I kind of feel like this one it fizzled a bit. Let's say that it was an op, as I think we all really feel that it was. So we don't, op and false flag, as I say in my piece, false flag and ops are obviously different. False flags can be mixed. They can be things happen, but they didn't happen as they said. And then a false flag is used as an op. This one really throws me because they were maxing it out and then they just pushed it off the stage and there was no follow-up. And maybe I'll do some follow-up. I don't quite get what they got from it.
I just want to say
they got a lot because it reinforces narrative about anti-Semitism as they're planning for a war with Iran. I think they got a lot out of this one.
I just wanted to interject 2 points of information for our audience. When we say that someone's hypnotized in the MK Ultra program, it's not just, somebody has a watch in front of you and they're just kind of, winging it back and forth and, follow the bouncing ball. I mean, there's all kinds of techniques that have been proven to cause dissociative disorders. And it is through this process of creating a dissociative disorder that they're able to implant these suggestions and kind of robotize, so to speak, these people or these victims, we should really say. And a lot of it deals with torture, sleep deprivation, psychedelic drug use. I mean, there were times where I think you had said, Jeremy, that they had one prisoner that they gave him. How many times did they give him LSD?
Yeah, well, 2 points. The first point, feeding off what you're saying, is a CIA psychologist who's part of these programs bragged that we can create an assassin in 2 months or something. So yeah, these are hardcore techniques that they perfected over years through illicit and illegal criminal experiments that they carried out on often unwitting patients. One was and prisoner. They often experimented with prisoners. And there was experiments that were done in Atlanta, and there was a professor at Emory University, often top university, that were implicated in these sadistic human experiments. One was a well-known psychiatrist at Emory University. His name is in my article. I can't remember the doctor's name, but and a victim was Whitey Bulger. They pumped him with LSD for about 80 straight days, and they tortured him in various ways that it drove him to insanity. And he said he still slept with the lights on for the rest of his life. And he admitted that he had committed crimes, but he's like, they committed much worse than me, thing they did on me. And he admitted that he was no saint before, but it's still a violation of human rights. And he turned into a monster after he got out of prison. So
and then there's Ewan Cameron.
We know a lot just from Whitey Bulger's memoir. And yeah, Ewan Cameron, a lot of experiments occurred at McGill University, which is my alma mater. And Dr. Donald Hebb, who actually was taught my mother, who was a psychology student, although she wasn't involved at all in those experiments, but she was just a student at the school. But yeah, McGill University, a lot of sadistic things went on there. So yeah,
they called it psychic driving. So if our audience wants to go into detail, psychic driving.
Yeah, and they take total control over human beings. So that's how they can carry out these kind of operations. I mean, it sounds like science fiction, but they've actually bragged about doing it. So,
well, we've got the wrap it up thing. I just want to give Celia one more chance to please tell our audience where we could find your work and purchase your books. So please plug yourself a little bit, and then we're going to go to our outro.
You guys, and I'd love to come back anytime. So my book, Serious Adverse Events, An Uncensored History of AIDS, on Amazon. My Substack is celiafarber.substack.com. It's called The Truth Barrier. All content is free, no paywall. Oops, pardon me. And I'm rooting around for, here it is. This is my most recent book written with OBGYN MD, Dr. James Thorpe, and this is about the catastrophic effects of COVID shots on pregnant women in the United States. It's called Sacrifice: How the Deadliest Vaccine in History Targeted the Most Vulnerable. That's also on Amazon.
Okay, well, that wraps up our show for today. This is Left on Left. I'm Gloria Guillo, joined here by Professor Jeremy Kuzmarov and Celia Farber. Remember to like and share our broadcast. Your kind support keeps us going. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next week. Oh, okay, Celia, we're still live. We're still on video. So
Okay.
just keep that in mind if you want to chat a little bit, if there's something that you wanted to get out that didn't make it to the radio.
Yeah, actually, there is.
We can show those videos too. I didn't know you were gonna. I didn't
No,
want
I
to
know.
go for the
Yeah, I
radio.
threw
Yeah,
that
we could
out
do
of-
them here. This is the perfect
Yeah,
place to
let's
put
do
the
it. Can we
videos
do
up.
it?
The only thing
Okay,
is,
yeah.
before we
Because-
go on, Jeremy, how much time do you got to run? Or?
Well, I actually, before I leave, I want to get your email, Celia, but
Sure.
I can
I'll
stay
send
on
it.
for about 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah.
I'll give
5
it
or
to you,
10
Jeremy.
minutes.
Don't
Okay.
worry.
What I want is for us all to look at these clips and then tell each other what we see, right? Because I don't want it to just be me. It's like, what do you see when you know, and it's very challenging because of the guilt thing. Probably women feel more guilty than men do. That may not be true. I don't know. But I figure if we're all looking at it, let's just talk a little bit about it. If you have the one, I think these are all in the first article. Maybe not.
I think
Maybe
this is the one you're talking about, the older guy who was
Okay, yeah,
crying?
let's go with this one. Yeah, this one. Let's start with this one.
Happened to be walking past at the time. John, thank you for talking to us this evening. Deeply disturbing scene for you to witness. If it's okay with you, would you just share with us and tell us exactly what you saw happen this evening?
I was walking by, and a guy came up and looked like a gun. I couldn't tell what it was, but I heard it afterwards, the shots, and he shot this young couple.
Okay.
And then he ran inside and yelled something. I couldn't make it out what he said. He just ran up. It was terrible. I don't know.
And the Emmy goes to.
It was terrible. It was like he knew him, but I don't think he knew him. But
Sorry.
he went right up to him. I don't know.
John, thank you deeply. Tragic event that you had to witness.
Okay, I'm going to be quiet. You guys tell. What do you?
I mean, it's not, from my point of view, it's not, I wouldn't say irrefutable proof, but it does look manufactured. Like that's not genuine human emotion, is my impression. If somebody was really broken down because they witnessed something horrible, they might genuinely be crying, or it looked like it was an actor, frankly. But
A bad actor at that. I mean, the CIA is going to have to pay more money to their crisis actors, is my opinion here.
Well, I think they're just picking random people that they can pay off. Well, I don't know. What's going through my head watching that is thinking, like, is the reporter in on this?
It goes deep.
Yeah, or I mean, because sometimes you just got real people that are just interacting with it and they're doing what they're supposed to do. They don't really know that they're part of an op, and that could be what's going on here. So, that's the useful idiots, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean that doesn't look legitimate, but it could be. I agree with Jeremy. It's
very
not
odd,
irrefutable, but it is very strange
because there's no detail. He's like he just shot this couple, and then he says he went right up to them, and then he says. But it's just not factual in some strange way. He doesn't say like they screamed or they didn't scream or someone called the cops. It lacks all of those elements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
suspicious. It points to the need for more investigation at a minimum.
Yeah, I'd say that. To me, is like is a guy like that going to be part of the court case? Are they going to be subpoenaed as a witness? So
that's a good point.
Court case, because a lot of these court cases, they don't want it to go to court. The guy, they have his lawyer, they force him to plead to avoid the death penalty. because the last
Or
thing
they
you want
whack
is a
'em.
trial because
Right.
Or they whack them.
Do you want to look at the one with the father? Do we have that
Yeah.
one?
I have this one. It's a younger guy.
Oh yeah, we could do that one too.
I'll look for the father. It's probably there. I just haven't sussed it out.
Sorry to throw this at you. It's just a spontaneous. Oh, there he is. Yeah, this guy also has
he
ghosts.
looks a bit young for the father.
I did see somebody run in. The security guard happened to let this guy in. I guess they were thinking that he was a victim. And he was covered in rain. He was clearly in trauma. He was in shock. And, some of the people at the event brought him water. They sat him down. Are you okay? Were you shot? What happened? He's like, somebody called the cops, bring the cops in. So about 10 minutes later, when the cops actually came in, he said, I did this. He said, sir, I'm unarmed. He put his hands up. He grabbed a red kufi out of his pocket and started the Free Palestine chants. There's only one solution, Intifada revolution. And he was being dragged out of the building as he was yelling Free Palestine. And he kept yelling Free Palestine. I, tried to hand him his keffiyeh back because I didn't really realize that he murdered 2 people. About 5-10 minutes later, we start to gather more data. It turns out he was in the building with us for like 15 minutes. Thank God he left the gun in the bushes outside, or he left the gun outside. And we found out that I think it was 2 people from the embassy that were murdered in cold blood. And obviously this is a secondary source, but my friend was actually watching the security footage, and he murdered somebody, executed them from the back, 5-10 shots. I don't know about the man that was killed or shot. I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but it's disgusting. I don't think any acts of...
I mean, an assassin would flee the scene. Why would he plant the gun in the bush and then walk back in the building? And if he wanted an audience, I mean, he would do it in a big public audience. If there's a rally or something, he would go after a top Israeli official. Why would he go for the low-level embassy staff? And shouting Free Palestine in a tiny event with a small number of people is not going to benefit any cause if that was his cause. So... I mean, I agree with you. It's suspicious.
I gotta say, is he a magician, the shooter? I mean, like, where is he getting these kafirs from? Is he like does he have like they're under his sleeve. He's got one, he drops it. Okay, he had all of a sudden another one comes out, and he can. I mean, play that clip with the kafir. I mean, that there's no yelling of Free Palestine with a kafir. And if there is,
right, he didn't.
And if there is, then he's a magician, and he's got a bunch of them.
It's also interesting. The one that I showed before, where he's actually
put it on
arrested.
again with the volume up. You guys see the guy pick it up? He doesn't get it.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
How do you wave a kafir with your hands handcuffed behind your back?
Whose camera is that? I mean, do we know?
It's really bananas, the whole thing. It's like they didn't really stitch this one together very carefully, like about the gun and it's all over the place. But it doesn't matter because it's an op.
Yeah, the thing that I find extremely bizarre.
For this one, how many stars do we give the CIA on this one, guys? Like this is not up to like the Reagan standard of the.
How many witnesses are there? I mean, like, did they interview many?
A very precise number. It was either 3 or 4, and they were everywhere. But
like this was supposedly what event was it again? What was
I have it in my notes.
It was like a peace summit at the Jewish Center.
So, I mean, supposedly there were hundreds of people there. Or?
I mean, it was kind of a soiree.
Young diplomat reception.
Why were there only like 2 or 3 witnesses if this supposedly happened in front of hundreds of people?
I was also struck in an MK Ultra vibe sense with covered in rain. Yeah. So first of all, I didn't see him seeming wet from rain at all, but covered in rain. I don't know, stuff like that.
Even raining that
what is covered in rain?
It didn't look like it was raining in that video.
I know. Nobody else has any sign of rain. Jamie, what were you about to say?
Well, I was going to say the thing that I find absolutely bizarre is if you're going to kill some people in public, why are you going to stick around after you do it? Like most people, I would think, are going to run. They're going to do it and go. And then there's going to be a manhunt. You don't just sit around and wait to get arrested.
And then he said he did it, and then and then he seems to only do the Free Palestine then when there's a camera there. So maybe he has an audience, but.
Well, what happened, what we view, and what the person who claims he handed them the kefir is complete disconnect. The person who's interviewed saying that he handed him the kefir and then he put it on and started yelling "Free, free Palestine." That didn't happen according to the video.
Yeah. So if it's an op, why do they have the main witness, that dude, saying something that doesn't match with the central clip of the alleged shooter? Why? This is what I want to talk to these op people and ask, like, why do you do that? Is that
it's a mess up. They have, in my opinion, they have this guy reciting the narratives just in case anyone misses it. Like if the video didn't come out good or this happened or that happened, they have, like the same way I read like an intro. It's just if we don't cover a topic, I know that it's been said and it can be retrieved later. So if that video was crap or something went wrong, we already have that narrative out there that he had the kefir and then he was screaming, "Free, free Palestine," even though that didn't happen in that sequence. And he wasn't successful in handing it to him. We see that other dude grabbing it from him, and walking away with it. So, I mean, hey guys, you got to work on your game, CIA. Better crisis actors.
Well, but it works because people don't look into the detail like we're looking at.
Yeah.
For all these events, like the Boston Marathon, I mean, I didn't look at it. I thought it was another Muslim attack. I mean, and I was prone to believe, or maybe it's just because they're angry about the drone war and stuff. But, then because I met James Fetzer and he sent me a copy of his book and I read it carefully, and then I did a little of my own research, and it just didn't make any sense. But that was only because I met Fetzer and started doing research. 99.9% of people don't do that research, don't re-examine these videos, and that's what Celia was saying accurately at the beginning. It's all about emotion, and they just see the headline. I mean, and our friend Steve Brown always said that you need a catchy headline, because most people only read the headline and maybe they'll read a few paragraphs, but they don't really invest time or critical thought process. And the whole point of an op is to tap into people's emotion. And most people may be already prone to be prejudiced against Muslims or the Palestinians. So they immediately, anti-Semitism, it's real, and they don't do what we're doing. But now that we look into this, we already have a lot of the questions just in a few minutes of videos. And if you do a broader study or more investigation, you'll probably find more holes. But that'll never be publicized in any mainstream media. Unfortunately, we can only access a tiny percentage of the population.
I want to tell you guys about another op that I wrote about, which is super, super creepy, and it's a very sloppy one. There was a woman a nurse who took the very first COVID injection on camera and fell down. Do you remember this, Gloria? Do you remember this one? Tiffany Dover was her name. And so people who are, as I am, against vaccinations and believe them to be dangerous and often deadly.
Well, I just want to say we're not giving medical advice here. These are our opinions, and we would like our audience to think for themselves.
Sorry. Okay.
It's not medical advice. I just have to put that out there.
I got you. Yeah. All I meant was, like,
flagged.
we were kind of like, what happened to her? What happened to her? So for years we were looking for, did she die? And that became a whole subculture, conspiracy theory. did she die? Tiffany Dover, she's dead. She's dead. And people in France were working on it. And they rolled out like a supposedly perfectly alive and well and healthy, now divorced Tiffany Dover via this very, very weaponized journalist, Brandy something. And she doesn't look like her at all. Like, it's not her. It's not even close. I wrote a whole piece about this. So I feel like this op thing is so much more deep and sinister and bizarre and creepy and scary than we give it credit for. It's sort of like an occult phenomenon, I feel. Like they just, and I don't understand that they're not well done, as we've established. They are emotionally effective in this kind of flash flood way. But I feel like it means something else to them to do this. It means something to them to do this. They're up to something with all of this.
Yeah.
Because if you just relied on the actual news, you couldn't get any agenda across. If you just went with, if the news was just the news, think about it.
Just factual. Yeah.
I think they don't respect us. They really think we're stupid, and that they don't have to be better than they are. Because a lot of what they do is effective, even if it's sloppy. So
true. And maybe the sloppiness is part of what I would call a humiliation ritual that they're imposing. It's like, because they're into humiliation rituals too. George Floyd's autopsy says he died from fentanyl overdose.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was interested. Didn't matter. 90 million raised by BLM. It's like, it's breathtaking what you can do with, like, the op industrial complex. It's a winning business model. It's amazing.
There's a whole book out on the George Floyd thing now that just kind of details the entire operation.
Yeah.
How about Luigi? He just happens to have the manifesto in his pocket and the murder weapon in his pocket when he goes to McDonald's. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't everybody know, like, if you pull off a hit in New York, you're supposed to throw the gun into the river? You cross the bridge, you toss it into the Hudson, and you keep going. I mean,
I saw a documentary recently about the Zapruder film. There's a whole documentary. I don't know if you all have heard of it or seen it. And it's just about the Zapruder film, and it's about the two cuts in the Zapruder film. There are two cuts. It's not a continuous film. So these super forensic film people, some of them who came out of Hollywood, they just obsessed about the status of that piece of film. It's not one continuous piece of film. And where they shot it, so all the networks were there that day, but none of them, only this guy has footage of the shooting.
Which shooting was this?
I'm sorry, JFK.
Thank you.
Well, I got to run, guy. This is a great conversation. I got.
We'll have to have you back for the next PSYOP, which I'm sure is right around the corner.
Yeah, you keep talking.
We're ready for it.
Yeah. All right, Celia, I'll send you an email so we're in touch. Yeah, Gloria.
Wonderful.
Send me an email. Yeah.
And to our audience.
Pleasure.
And to our audience, we take everything serious. We're not here poking fun at people who may be victims. We're not. We're saying that, we need to use our discernment at all times. And it's also important for our psychology to, take a step back when these events hit us so that we are not psyoped. And if we step back and, we take a look, it's good for our own mental health. And we here, all of us, love our audience, love our viewers, and we want everyone to be psychologically healthy. And health is not in following these psyops and being emotionally, charged with this or that, and having all of these enemies and, these wars and things like that. We look at things and we may make some jokes, and it's really to help ourselves psychologically process really ugly, horrible information. And for whatever reason, all of us are attracted to dark stuff. And the only way you can really get through dark stuff is to, step back and have, as Jamie says, kind of a gallows sense of humor. you're on death row and you see what's going on and it's horrific. But if you don't step back and make a few jokes, you're not going to survive it. So that's why we have LOL, and it's, laugh out loud. And, it's not meant to be
Dark humor.
disrespectful to any of the, the people involved. It's just, it's a coping strategy, and I'll tell you, it works. When things are bad, find the silver lining, find the part that makes you go, huh? And, that's what I think we all, right, Celia? That's what we all advise.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're all dealing with the question, and I don't know how Jim Fetzer has gotten through everything that he's done, because that was the big mother guilt trip, and with Sandy Hook, like it's an impossible story. So Barack Obama, as we all know, signed into law the Smith-Mundt Act, legalizing propaganda by the U.S. government, which before Sandy Hook, conveniently. So all of this stuff, this is, I think, what we don't stop and realize, like, oh, when Obama did that, it meant we're in this matrixy thing now where they gave themselves legal permission to pour propaganda, psyops, and brainwashing over us. I don't think most people know that there was a change. I think it was 2012.
Yeah, the Smith-Mundt Act. We on Green Renaissance Sovereign Rights Movement, we have that prominent on our website on page 1 as
it's
being
huge.
a turning point, as being a real turning point.
And then you have like the technologies and AI and social media and the loss of the veritable. Like, does this person like, you can't know if anything or if anybody exists. It's all very, very matrixy, and so you're sort of swimming in the matrix and trying to figure out if this is real, and then you're just left with that. You're in the question mark. You're never really in the kind of, we cracked it. Because even if you do crack it, aren't there people who have cracked JFK, or at least they've been working on it for decades? It's designed, I'm sorry to say, so that, like, even if you crack it, you don't crack it. It's not crackable.
Yeah,
it's like a Gordian knot. It's just, you can't.
Yeah, we're just mice in this labyrinth, and they're kind of laughing, and they're on to the next one.
Yeah, they got us all like busy trying to uncover something that happened 60 years ago, and now they're moving on to the next thing. And we've got all this war stuff happening right now, and with the AI, you got to be super duper careful with all of it. It's like, I was ready to share a bunch of stuff I was seeing coming out from Iran and Israel last night. And I have to stop and think, wait, is this real? And there's a lot of people posting fake stuff in the sense that it was real events, but it's not Iran or Israel. Things that happened other places. And then there's real good AI stuff out there now.
Yeah.
There was something I watched. I had to watch it over and over. I'm like, that doesn't look right. And then you read the comments and everybody's like, oh, this is fake. This is fake. This is fake. And I'm like, is it fake? And you watch it and go, well, if it's not fake, I can't trust it, because it kind of has that sense of it probably is fake. And the scary thing is, in about a year or two, we're not going to be able to tell if it's fake or real anymore.
Absolutely.
That's how good it is.
Somebody on my Substack, I posted some clips after the massacre. It's actually no longer the most recent, the next to most recent massacre in Khan Yunis in Gaza. And it was just blown up people and blood everywhere. And one of my readers, or somebody who comes to my Substack sometimes, she has a very radical theory, which kind of gets my hack.
We just lost you.
Oh, it just
you
muted.
just muted.
I don't know why it did that. It did it automatically. You know what? I bet her
sorry. Okay, let
browser.
me. Something happened with the mic, but she's positing like, oh my God, you're so naive. Don't you realize it's all fake? So she zooms in on one baby in a hospital, and she says, this is a doll, and this is a doll, and this is fake, and this is fake. So I just went to there's the Gaza Department of Health. There's a Uppsala University in Sweden. There's lots of ways that they actually track every single person who has died and their names and everything. So then and I'm going to present it like, okay, you're saying, she basically was saying, it's all fake. This is how people think now. Everything is fake, which also disables reaction and empathy, because the next thing is going to be, we're supposed to think everything is fake, including all the dead children in Gaza. I mean, it's just a real slippery slope.
I mean, I do think they can fake things if they want to, but to put out the volume of stuff that we've seen, they can't put out the volume.
Well, it's also called flooding the zone, and it leads to analytic fatigue. And, even we get analytic fatigue, when you're studying things and, there's just too much information, too much to sift through. We say, oh God, it's just too much. I'm going to go on to something else, which is why I really appreciated your 2 articles, because you got every detail just nicely organized, and I was able to just go right through it, and it made my life easy.
Thank you. I was mad. And then there was all hell broke loose, not with most of my readers, but with this one person who just decided, he just kept attacking me. He's a pro-Israel guy.
Yeah.
And, I feel like I would hope that I would be interested in making lies into, correcting lies and distortions, even if it winds up pointing to a point of view that's not my own point of view. I like to think I think the truth is really a liberator. The truth liberates everybody, no matter what side you're on.
Agreed.
But on the other hand, I can't imagine a scenario where, I don't even know, am I going to continue pursuing this? No matter what I were to find out, it would end badly for me, and it would end well for them, because that's how the world is set up.
Well, the more we spin our wheels and go in circles, the more they're able to focus on other topics. And I think, we would all agree that these PSYOPs are at least a diversion, a tactic to, like a magician's tactic. Look at this hand. While this hand is actually doing the magic act, the other hand is visible. So usually there's, I think we all can say that there's other things going on when they have these PSYOPs, when they have anything that's in the news media and overplayed. And,
I think this one, this Israeli embassy shooting, I think this was more about narrative control, and trying, because they can see it and feel it slipping control from the people. It's not working, so they needed something to bolster it and try to re-energize this narrative of trying to convince everybody, we're the good guys, when all the evidence we see in front of our eyes is telling us the opposite.
Yeah, don't believe your lying eyes.
I mean, that's literally what they've been telling us for the last 2 years. So, I don't know. Well, let me bring up this. There was a question in the during the show, and I think it's more of a point of clarification. So are you thinking that the couple is actually fictitious, or that they're hapless victims in a PSYOP intended to have the effect that it did?
I think both could be true. What do you think, Celia?
The truth is, I don't know. Those 2 pieces raised a field. I put like a perimeter around a bunch of questions about an op, and it was inconclusive. I couldn't, unless I can get a hold of death certificates, and I don't have the tools to do that. So I can't fathom that they could have been fictitious, because my brain can't. I don't dare say I think they were. It's like the Sandy Hook dilemma all over again. Like, if we're not allowed to know, put it that way. Everything leads to these foggy. It's like you can't get anywhere with it. It's a rigged labyrinth. So if I had to choose right now, what do I think happened? Honestly, what I come up is a pure straight up, I don't know. I just don't know what I will say, I don't know if they were really, I see, I can't even bring myself to say it. Like, were they really, I will just say, sorry, I have to back off a little. I just want to put it this way. I know that there are ghost Facebook accounts, that there are ghost people who are archetypal, who are created on Facebook. So if we start there and maybe we just kind of look at that phenomenon and then go from there, because everything feels like a trap to me. In other words, if I say, I don't like Jim Fetzer's whole life, right? Is that whatever he proves, guess what? He's pushed further and further into this pit, this, whether it's legal, they cut off your money or they throw you in jail. So what do? I think we just kind of start to look at patterns together, look at patterns, look at the system, and don't necessarily, I do have an answer. I very consciously, when I wrote those pieces, decided that there's foreground and background. In the foreground, were they real? Were they shot? Did anything happen the way they said? But it's the background I'm really interested in. What are the patterns of propaganda, ops, false flag, psyops in American media today with AI part of it? What are the patterns? And then we can kind of leave, it's like there's the trap and there's the mouse and there's the cheese. I'm actually not that concerned with any particular case. I'm just concerned with, what do they do now? How do they do it? What is the magic industrial complex apparatus we all feel all the time, but we can never kick the door down and get in there? Like, who are you people? How are you doing all this? That's what I'm interested in. I hope that's not a disappointing answer.
No, I think it's very honest. And I think it's, we don't know. We don't know.
Well, it's frustrating. I never even considered that that couple might not even be real. It's like, if people are killed, that is a provable thing, and somebody's got to be. It's going to be corroborated. I mean, you just assume it will be, like, but you bring it up, and then
let's ask the difficult question. How would we know in this day and age if people, were real, existed, were killed? What would the methodology be of tracing all that? If you go to the police reports and stuff is weird, and you go to the funerals,
ballistics and an autopsy report.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it hadn't even occurred to me that they might not be real.
Even then, we see the bodies disappear all the time. I mean, they get harvested. I think President John F. Kennedy, they actually removed his brain.
Yes. Well,
they covered that up.
Corpses.
Yeah. So and then even with the criminal, Epstein, they were showing him being wheeled out on a gurney. It didn't look like him. And the standard operating procedure for EMS is, if someone is dead, they never bring them out uncovered. It's just, you don't do it. It's EMS 101. You bag them and then you take them out. So people were saying that they were trying to establish that he was really killed, as opposed to he was extracted, which is another theory. So I mean, this stuff's all over. But I think the main thing is it does cause confusion. For the most part, people just follow the prevailing narrative and they don't ask questions. And
I
then
called the photographer who took that picture of alleged Jeffrey Epstein, William somebody or other. He might be with Associated. He's a very established photographer. Of course, he didn't call me back, but yeah, it certainly does. But I was wondering, so you were there at 4 a.m? You were there, like they wheel him out, and did they call you? Like, how did why are you there at 4 a.m. taking this picture? It's
synchronicity,
on, right? Those are the things you don't think about because you see the image. But I think that's a really good starting point. How was this person there to take the picture? How did we get this like with the Zapruder film? Why was just this one guy got this film and there's no other footage? All the networks were there, but they just weren't. Maybe they were having coffee. So it's not just what is happening, it's what isn't happening that should be happening. Nothing's so they, in other words, so PSYOPs happen in this little, it's almost like a little can or like a laboratory jar where they make everything just right, but it's never the
diorama. Do you remember dioramas?
Yeah, right. Diorama. Right.
It's this little world in a empty shoebox.
It's
so you can get a grade. You can get a grade in second grade.
Diorama. Those used to make me panic. I couldn't. Never had mine done. Well, I hope we're not in trouble. I hope I haven't gotten us in trouble with this.
No, I mean, this is an entertainment show. This is, our audience is urged to form their own opinions. Our audience is encouraged to do their own research.
And like, if we were to find out exactly how it happened, and I'm just a total idiot to ask these questions, like, then what? Will it have been wrong to have asked the questions? Like,
it's our duty to ask the questions. We have to ask the questions for those people who don't know to ask them, or too afraid to ask them. Somebody's got to ask them. So we ask them. All right, let's go do whatever we have to do in our lives, and
I was going to say, if you want to break from all this, is kind of breaking your brain, go watch the Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz interview.
I will. I haven't seen it yet.
It's amazing. It's not an interview. It's a 2-hour argument. It's kind of like it's almost like watching a sporting event. It's kind of good.
Why would Ted Cruz agree to something like that?
Well, because I think they're friends. Why would he agree to
Cruz
stay
have 2 hours worth of content?
Yeah, but it does not go well for Ted Cruz.
Destroyed, like that he was destroyed in this interview.
Yeah, I mean, Ted does actually push back. It's not just all one-sided. There's some moments where he kind of jabs at Tucker, but but Tucker definitely comes out on top on this one. It's and he just Tucker has this thing where he plays stupid.
Yeah.
And he'll ask you a question like he doesn't know the answer already. Then you give him a bad or a stupid answer, and then he tells you what the correct answer is, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like he does that to Ted like 2 or 3 times, and it's just like, oh man, that's so embarrassing. It's really amazing. And like, I'm sitting here thinking, if I were to go back in time and tell myself 15 years ago I'd be rooting for Tucker Carlson, I would say you're insane. But I'm watching this thing and just you're sitting there going, go Tucker, go. It's amazing. It's worth your time. It's a 2-hour interview, but it's not a slog, not at all. It actually took me like 4 hours to get through because I kept having to pause it and like and rewind and watch stuff again and do stuff like that.
And here's one that I think that I want to suggest, if you guys haven't seen it, it's the interview with Pepe Escobar by Judge Andrew Napolitano.
Oh yeah,
I love we love Judge Napolitano here.
He's I like Pepe.
And Pepe's amazing. He talks about what's really happening in the world outside our U.S. Dome
bubble,
our bubble. And this is just one of the things that comes out in that interview that. Guess who got Iran's back on network back, like after the original strike? Who got them back on? What's the word I'm looking for?
Are you talking
online,
about Miranda?
back online?
There's a word for that. Yeah, it was actually Russia that helped them with that, like got them back up. So when we say war with Iran, we mean not to get into it, but we mean Russia, China, Iran, India.
I'm going to say something that will probably get me in trouble, but I've become so cynical about everything. And what happened is I was studying the Iran-Iraq war, and this was involving Iran-Contra and all of that stuff, and I was really deep in it. And I found out that while the Ayatollah Khomeini was threatening to blow up Israel was selling them weapons. And that blew my mind. And I spent some time on that. And what I found out is that really the United States was selling weapons to Iraq and Iran. But because it didn't look good, they had to launder the weapons through Israel.
Yeah.
So even though Israel and Iran are these horrible enemies and terrible, terrible things, and even though Iran is threatening to bomb Israel, Israel is selling them the weapons.
Yeah.
So once I heard that, I've never really recovered. And
Right.
the other thing is, you know, when I look at we had our guest Debbie Lerman, and Debbie Lerman was talking that we've gone beyond fascism here because it's worldwide, it's global, and
Yeah.
you know we do have to think differently because of that, and it makes me question everything at this point as being theatrics, because really, what happens if you blow up Iran and you blow up Israel and you blow up the United States and you blow up this and you blow up that? Well, the predator class is untouched. And if you blow everything up, they get to get rid of their inventory of weapons, and they
Yeah.
get new contracts to build up their inventory again.
Yeah.
And
balance.
then and then the bankers get all of this money, you know, from a failing economy. And then the cherry topper is then you get the contracts for the reconstruction. So
Yeah.
as long as you're not in the working or impoverished classes, okay, as long as you're in a wage earning class, this is real bad. But if you're in the predator class, you know, the 0.0001%, it doesn't matter if there's scarcity. It doesn't even matter if there's a nuclear war, because you've got $1 billion, bomb shelter that you can go to. And I've seen pictures of these. I actually went on this rant where I was studying all of these, you know, these fancy bunkers that they've created. You know, and what I came up with, and I always want to say this to the predator class, is you think you're going to be happy, you know, in the ground with your family? I don't think so. You hate each other, and you hate the other families. You're gonna imprison yourself in hell, and everybody you bring there to serve you is gonna hate you because you blew everything they had up. So,
Well,
you really think you're gonna do well in a war? No, you're not. You're going to be miserable and imprisoned underground. So you really want World War III? I don't think you do. I think
and
you
there's
need
not
to
going to be
think a
anything to
little
come
bit
back
more.
up to.
Yeah,
there won't be anything from the come out of the bunker
exactly.
too.
So
and when the stuff in the bunker starts breaking, where are they going to get the parts to fix it? Do they have machine shops in there? Do they know how to use those machine shops?
It's poorly planned. So you got a nice swimming pool and you know, a make believe sky, big deal. But you know,
Yeah, and that'll last for how long? Like a month or two.
So yeah, so let's not have a nuclear war, folks.
But here's the other thing. Like, do they really believe they're going to get the ones?
Okay, Celia?
Oh no, I was just picturing that. I was like, oh.
Well, here's the other thing. You built the bunker, right? Well, you hired people to do it, so people know where the bunker is. And the rich really think that once society breaks down and everybody knows that they're the ones who caused it, that they're going to get to be the ones to actually use the bunker.
Yeah, right. It's
I mean, we're talking about a might
through.
makes right situation, and a lot of them don't have the might. They just have the money, and the money won't matter anymore.
And speaking of ops, have you know the Iran op morphed from, in the beginning it was, you know, Netanyahu yelling it's all nuclear, and then it turns to regime change with no bridge, not helping any. How do we go? And then it's sort of like this feminism thing, like the women and we got to live. They got to wear their bikinis again, and it like, what is the, you know, that's another thing with the sloppy op thing. They like the messaging.
Sloppy op.
Yeah, but that's something that comes out in the Tucker interview last night. He really exposes that Ted Cruz totally believes that Iran has tried to plan 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump, and Tucker's like, well, that's horrible. Why aren't we going to war over that? Why are we going to war over these nuclear weapons that they don't have, and they've proven that they don't have? And we keep saying we can't let them have a nuclear weapon when they don't have a nuclear weapon. That's why we're going to war, but we're not going to war over Iran having 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump, which seems like a legitimate reason for us to want to go to war. And
then
so he
it
really
just
exposed his TED
so
on that.
surreal that Donald Trump writes on social media, like social media, all caps, we're not going to kill him yet, but we could kill him. Like it's a joke. Like this, really, this is geopolitics.
Well, then the other thing is, this whole illusion that Netanyahu or Donald Trump are in charge. They're not. They're puppets. It's the people behind them that no one sees that have told them, hey, either you do this or, you're dead to us. So, there's very little that a world leader has. I mean, everything is behind the scenes. And when you look at it all, it's the bankers and it's BlackRock.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
who benefits? Who loses?
And the thread that I see, the one continuous thread over the last roughly 200 years, is the New World Order gang. All of them. That's what brings them all together. George Bush, like it, and for some reason, that's a lot of people's blind spot. It's that.
And I get distracted every time I hear New World Order because I was a big wrestling fan in the 90s. And that was, to me, the New World Order is Hulk Hogan, Scott Hall, and Kevin Nash. So
there was a rock band.
I hear that in my mind. That's exactly where my mind goes to. And I'm like, oh yeah, but there's this big giant cabal that's trying to rule everything. That's what we really need to be worried about. But I get very distracted.
So I don't know. I don't know.
How do we stay sane? How do we stay spiritually alive and buoyed? And it's like you look at it and then it seems so devastating, and then the other option is just don't look at it, but that doesn't exactly work either. What do you guys do?
It's community. It's this moment right here when we have Jamie, we have Celia, we had Jeremy, and we're together and we're chatting and we have our audience and they're not alone. Okay. For this moment, everyone who's sitting in their living room or driving in their car, who's listening to this broadcast, you are not alone. We are here. And, that's what we have, so it's a beautiful thing. And everyone who reads your Substack is inspired, such as I was. And, when I read what you wrote, I wasn't alone. I was in this hotel room watching Fox, seeing this beautiful couple. Oh my God. And they were going to get me.
There were very few photos of them. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it was odd. Yeah, it was recycled 2 photos. So, I just kept seeing that over and over again. And like you, when you see this whole narrative constantly repeated, every night for 2 weeks, it was on Fox News. From the moment it started to the end of the broadcast was on all of these.
And it's emotional
topics.
Bludgeoning. It's like you feel that you're being emotionally bludgeoned and you're being told that you're, and they're punching against wrong think, that you mustn't think this and you must think that. And it kind of works. It's so bizarre.
When I examined the psychological aspects to this, I think it was maybe 2 shows ago, what we found is that when you're constantly bludgeoned, you become desensitized and you become numb. And really, what the predator class wants is for us to become numb, for us to feel that there's absolutely nothing we can do, nothing we could say, that nothing matters. Because when we are in that state, we are very easy to control. And I think most of it is about, in my opinion, it is about control.
I actually believe, I've come to think recently that the showing us the horrifying footage from Gaza and not blocking that or banning that is part of the transhumanism agenda to make us no longer human and desensitize and make us complicit in it. That's what they do when they break children in those, satanic. That's
where they have them kill animals, kill other children. Yeah, these are techniques. I read that in your article, and I was like, yeah, Celia.
Oh, did I say that?
Yeah, I read it. It was good. I was like, Celia, right on.
I think that's it. I really think that we've got to look less at the I guess I would say the material, physical, and more at the spiritual, psychological, and people simply underestimate the demonic, the satanic. They really do. It's like they can't be just, because if you try to look at it like, why wouldn't they want good things for their children? None of it's going to make sense. I feel, it's just me, I feel one must begin to wrap one's head around the satanic, or it makes no sense.
Well, it makes sense for, certain people. These are all ways of achieving control. I mean, if you say that you have satanic energy, then you are building yourself up as being impenetrable. Like this is not only bad people, but this is bad people with juju. This is bad people with magic. So it adds this other level of
Right. No,
of
but what I mean
stuff.
by that is there's some people like who are defending what Israel's doing. They'll say, well, war is hell, which makes me nuts when people say, oh, war is hell, because that's like a clear signal, desensitized, don't have empathy. But a lot of what's come out very well documented from Gaza is this extra element of very strange and very meticulous sadistic stuff, like where they'll put the men will put the women's clothes on, and it's like mockery and sadism. And that's where I just feel like, okay, so is all of IDF like some weird MK Ultra experiment too? Like, what have they done to those people? How did that happen? This is really abnormal.
Well, we talked about gallows humor.
Yeah,
I think when you see stuff like that, those are the soldiers trying to cope with knowing that they're
No. It's not coping. It's
You don't think so?
It's sadism. It is sadism. It is complete sadism.
Something to them.
Yeah. I had two sons. I still have two sons that were in the Navy, and it messes with your brain. I mean, you go through a whole bunch of deprogramming and reprogramming. I mean, to get someone to the point where they would kill on command or do something that's immoral because they're told to, it's, right away, there's already this conditioning.
Yeah, and I'm talking about the line where they don't just kill, they start to feel like the pleasure of it. That's the part that really freaks me out. I wish that Israel were doing more to conceal. It just really troubles me the way they're not trying to conceal it at all. They're only bludgeoning us with you're a terrorist if you have empathy, if you don't understand that that's
terrifying.
Well, they had all the things that were coming out about the raping of Palestinians by Israelis and people, regular people wanting to partake in it and glad that it happened and raving about it. I also think that I have Israeli friends, and I believe that when they put someone on camera, it's a specific narrative from an Israeli that they want to cultivate and report on. So just because we're seeing some people from Israel saying, "Oh yeah, let's rape the Palestinians; they deserve it," that's not the major sentiment. And I've been to Israel. I don't know if you had the opportunity, either of you. And, what I saw when I was there was that Palestinians and Israelis were shopping in each other's stores and, working together. And there wasn't this, hatred on a ground level. People, were very friendly. And then there'd be some narrative that would come up, oh, the Palestinians are going to stab the Israelis, and people would get all worked up and things like that. And there's this guy that's part of Green Renaissance. His name is John Spritzler, and what he always talks about is that Israel has a working class, an impoverished class, and they also have a predator class. And if you keep having a boogeyman, which in this case is the Palestinians, then you kind of unite the working and impoverished to kind of hold up the government. And just before people were really getting their pitchforks out at the way things were going, they had this, this narrative on October 7th which many believe was a let it happen event. And when I'm saying many, I'm talking about Israeli soldiers who
Sure.
actually had been in that area, were saying you can hear a cat. The technology is so precise that you could see and hear a cat walking across a wall. So for them to be able to breach the wall and all of that stuff and conduct all of these drills without them knowing, it made no sense. And then we found out that certain Israeli soldiers and who were on active duty all of a sudden ended up dead. And they were complaining that nothing was going on, that they knew that these training exercises were happening and they were reporting it, but that information was never dealt with. So there's a lot of things out there. But when we paint things with these broad strokes, and that's what they really want us to do in the United States. They want us to think all Israelis are, demonic and sadistic, which isn't the case. Or they want us to believe that all Palestinians are crazy, terrorists, which isn't the case. So, anytime they tried to get us into, this kind of groupthink prejudice, it's again, PSYOP time.
Yeah, we have to stay in our human empathy because, again, the real war is they want to get us out of humanity altogether, like push us. You're outside now, humanity. You're a cog, you're a machine, you're part of the machine, you're going into the Borg. And so that's what I think about all the time. Like, am I becoming, because I can feel myself blunted and altered and weakened, and it gets harder to be a human being by a definition that is kind of, before all of this happened, there were all these human being things that we used to do and that we used to take for granted that have been stripped away. So I think about that stuff as like, how do I, and then I just get tired, and then I'm sort of back looking at something, and I just feel that they're leeching our humanity from us, and I don't feel it, it's happening. And then like the young generations, like my son's generation, my daughter-in-law, with Gaza, the effect it's having on them in terms of social engineering is there's real despair. Like they don't see their own future either. And that's also what these social engineers want, right? Like that everyone should just be so bludgeoned. There's this weird feeling over everything that Israel is like this big angry mama or something. And as long as mama's angry, like nobody can expect an evening or a day or a laughter or a fun, anything. It's like we're all in this, and it's just enough already. Like, and I was thinking today, why am I being asked by this entity called Israel to support it and them, whatever they're demanding, including World War III and war with Iran? What other country has ever asked me to have feelings about it? Like, support me. It's a weird thing, as if we're a person, like support Israel. What do you mean? No one says like support, Albania, support, like it's just weird. Well, okay, it did happen with Ukraine.
I was about to say Ukraine, we've been getting that for 3 years, but it's not in the same level. It's similar, right, but it's not to the same degree.
It's absolutely bizarre. Like and my father was Jewish. My father was very pro-Israel. He loved Israel. Went to Israel a lot, and he was very pro. So I always heard his talking points about Israel because he was a radio broadcaster, and it was just. But I know I can say for him that he really believed it was a nation that was defending Jews from, like the Israel op is. I can't say that people who believe in it, like my father, are bad. I understand exactly how they did that, and I just kind of downloaded, listened to him and didn't take a position because I had this other enormous war going on that was And it turns out, actually, one of the main actors in the AIDS op, Matilda Krim, who founded MFAR, enormous money laundering operation, American Foundation for AIDS Research, which never did a lick of research. She was an Irgun agent, Matilda Krim. So all these things start to come out and you just see like how, when you keep digging and you get to this kind of unified entity, And I don't even think Israel is Israel. I think Israel is the crown. It's the British.
Exactly.
The empire. It's the British Empire. So I'm one of those people. I think it's all, the redressed British Empire.
Yeah, I see it as a derivative of the British Empire. It's more like the American Empire now. It's all one. It's the Western Empire, really.
Yeah,
we're all together. We're all one.
It's BlackRock.
The people, the BlackRock Empire might be more accurate, but
no boundaries, no country.
I think this argument: does Israel control the United States or USA control Israel? I think it's kind of silly. We're both Zionist nations. There's not one controlling the other. It's one unit acting together. So
I even wonder about Russia and China being our enemies. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But to me, from what I see, it seems China is, rolling out the techno. They're rolling out the stuff that they want to unleash here.
You gotta listen to Pepe Escobar. I'll send it to you. It's very interesting.
And then also in Russia, the greatest thing we could do for Russia was blow up Ukraine. They did fantastic.
Yeah.
We united the country behind Putin. We increased the value of the ruble. We just did great things. So it's hard to believe that this techno, class of this techno predator class is not all united. It's really hard to believe it isn't. The only thing they're united in, it seems that they're not that they're united. It's just, it's to me, it all comes down to kind of class warfare. This elite. So maybe they're not the elite in the United States. Maybe they're not just the elite in Russia. Maybe they're not just the elite in China or the elite in Israel. But they're all the elite, and they're united in Bilderberg. They're united in these UN groups and things like that.
Club of Rome, Council on Foreign Relations, Pilgrim Society. Oh my goodness!
I think they're highly competitive with themselves amongst each other, but when they present themselves to the masses, they are completely united. Because they're all fighting with themselves to be the one on top, to be the one in power. But they know that they have to stick together or none of them will be in power.
Well, I think they already are in power, but as long as there's a boogeyman, as long as they present a boogeyman to the Russians, it's the Americans. As long as the Americans present a boogeyman to the Americans, it's the Russians. It's the Chinese. It's the Iranians. As long as there's a boogeyman enemy, this narrative works. Once we deconstruct this concept, once we deconstruct this boogeyman enemy as a PSYOP in and of itself, then who are we focused on? Well, we're focused on the one group, the predator class, and they don't want that. They want us shooting at each other.
I was just
they don't want us looking up.
The real boogeyman is the predator class. That's
100%.
That's the boogeyman, and we got to get people to look at that. Like people will say, minorities are ruining this country. Well, there is a minority ruining this country. It's the super wealthy.
That's right.
0.001%.
Right.
And
that's the ones. But
and one thing I just want to say,
they don't see it as ruining this country. They think that we're the problem, that we're the infestation. So
I just want to make a point of clarification. A lot of confusion comes out when people say, it's the wealthy. No, it's not the guy who lives next door and has a Mercedes Benz and a Tesla. Mm-hmm. It's not the guy who, is a physician and his got a nice swimming pool. Well, when we're talking about the wealthy or the predator class, we are talking about 0.0001%. Very, very few people. What, 30 families maybe?
The
Are we
people who are
talking
so
about?
rich, money doesn't even matter.
So there's confusion, because when you say the wealthy, everyone thinks it's, I'm making $500,000 a year. Does that make me one of the bad guys? No, it
No, if
doesn't.
you're
It
making
doesn't.
$500,000 a year, you're not
It
the wealthy.
doesn't. It
No.
doesn't. If you're 0.0001%, it's you. And also,
if you're
it's your
bringing in
activity.
$500,000 a year, the top 1% is looking at you as one of the poors.
Absolutely.
And the people who make that, you're doing pretty well for yourself. You got a comfortable life. They don't realize that they're part of the working class, at least from the top. They think they're part of the top, but they're not. They're just as expendable as the rest of us.
And I wrote this piece the other day. I haven't published it yet, but I took a drive through from central Connecticut to Buffalo, New York, and then I drove down back roads. It's this long story. I was buying this fiberglass trailer. I thought I was going to live in this trailer. It's this bizarre story, but I saw really shattering poverty. Like if you get off the highways and you get out of the big cities, it's like America is shredded. There's unbelievable poverty up there. Have you been to Buffalo lately? It's like
No,
incredible.
I haven't been to Buffalo.
And like the idea, I mean, this is something that occurred to me, and I don't know if it's just me, I don't think it is, but poverty, American poverty, never gets touched on by anybody. It's like, it's always this big deal stuff. It's never gas in the car, food. Like Americans they can't live in their houses. They can't pay rent. They're moving into their cars. If they're lucky, they have a car to move into. Like, this is just not a subject at all. And because it's always these inflamed, it's all these amygdala, like everything is panic and chaos and the latest thing, including right now. And it's never just, how are people living day to day, or are they? What is an America like? And the way everybody's going down the funnel, like I can't pay this and I can't pay. And everyone thinks, because this is another op, it's their unique eccentric, something went wrong, or I got a divorce, or I broke my leg, or in my case, I got hounded by, crossed Tony Fauci and he cut me off. But like, so everyone has their own idea why it's so incredibly hard to make ends meet, and they don't see the thing.
Class analysis. People aren't intentionally. People aren't trained in class analysis.
Right. And I saw the Trump thing as a class war, but it's such a cynical class war, because they made poor America. I'm going to say poor, but really I mean
impoverished.
Economically targeted Americans. They made them think Trump or made them almost like disassociate out of all of those questions and just be in this hyper place, which was like Trump. And I don't hold them in any contempt for that, because I know that as the social engineers, I grew up in like the land of social engineering, which is Sweden. Point being that like now those same people are going to be asked to send their sons and daughters to this war, if they have any left alive who haven't died of fentanyl or suicide, and this is the underbelly that nobody wants to talk about, because it's not amygdala stuff.
One of the PSYOPs that we're taught since we're basically infants is this individualization of poverty, where everything that goes wrong is because of you.
That's what I'm saying.
You didn't. No, but this is cultivated from birth. This is this individualization of poverty. It's these Horatio Alger stories that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you don't succeed, it's because of that. And one of the things that we say a lot on LOL is this concept that I'm going to forget my train of thought. That God, how do I get back to it? Well, you have this concept of socialism, and no one is taught really what is capitalism. My background is in economic theory. No one is really taught what is capitalism, what is socialism, what is communism. Nobody knows.
Monetary system.
Well, they're taught,
exactly.
but they're taught wrong. They're taught things that are wrong.
Nobody really knows. Honestly, even people who know are confused. It's murky. And what we have in this country, and I always say this, is we have socialism for the predator class. I mean, we bail out banks,
privatize socialism.
We bail out high-level execs.
Right.
Okay. Right. We have socialism for corporations and for bankers and for corporate execs, and they never go to prison. They never go to prison. No matter what they do, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And we have like the Jeffrey Epstein list of all of these pedophiles. Nothing happens. We can't even get the list. So we have socialism for the elite, and we have hardcore capitalism for the impoverished and working class. For us, it's you didn't succeed, it's your fault, and we're not giving you anything because this is capitalism. It's a very different thing. In the United States, capitalism is upside down socialism.
That's a good point.
So I just want to put that out there. And, when I studied China and I studied Mao, I found out he was a Yale boy. Yale hosted his bookstore. If it wasn't for Yale giving him space in a bookstore, he would have never been able to get his propaganda out. And then when you study what happened in China, it's terrible. So many people were killed. There was famines, you name it. So, whenever someone tells you, oh, we've got a socialist plan for you, but we're going to kill you and all your family, and then maybe in 50 years, it'll be nice. Don't believe them. So, I'm just very cynical on these things. And this is kind of where I've come to at this point.
Gloria, you were mentioning earlier when you kind of your oh my God moment when you discovered that, what was it you were saying about
Israel and Iran?
Right. And that Israel was selling weapons.
Was laundering the U.S.'s weapons.
The U.S.'s right. Okay. My moment equivalent of that, I think it was in 2015 when I discovered that Trotsky, Lenin, all those guys, that they brought all the Bolshevik revolutionaries, the leading ones, to New York and trained them in New York, and they were paid by Wall Street. And this is all like Anthony Sutton and all that. And I just went, what? And then finally it's like, okay, so the Federal Reserve funds all the revolutions, in quotes, all the wars, to keep all the chaos in the world and to do this whole like monetary system slavery thing and it all looks like revolution, but it's not revolution. It's the bank. It's the fix is in by the banking. I mean, that to me was just like, wait, you're telling me
with you
Wall Street funded the both, like what?
With you.
Yeah. That was and I think that's a really good starting point right there. You just ask people, and people still just think this. And Solzhenitsyn said they weren't Russian. These so-called Russian revolution leaders, they weren't even. They were like internationalist agents, and it's always like that. It's like the agents. We could go on and on, but I'll stop there.
What I hate to bring another topic in, but what I see is that in studying all of these regime changes, I in one of my articles I equated it to a situation where someone squirts ketchup on your shirt, okay, and you've got ketchup on your shirt. And all of a sudden, there's a guy behind you that's working with the person who squirts ketchup on your shirt, and they're picking your pocket. But because you're focused on the guy in front of you who just squirted ketchup on your shirt, and it looks like an accident. It looks like maybe he fell forward with his hot dog or his thing of fries or his coffee, whatever it is. That was the diversion, allowing the guy behind you to take your wealth. And when you see these regime changes, that's precisely what you see happen. Case in point, let's just, certainly in Russia, there was tremendous wealth with the czars. And all of a sudden you went to You went to communism from the czars. What happened to the wealth? It didn't look like it got distributed. Even in Iraq, there was all of the wealth that Saddam Hussein had collected that was in, his personal accounts and works of art and all kinds of stuff. What happened to that? We didn't get it. Somebody got it. So you see a tremendous amount, and then you look at the contracts. Who got all the contracts for the oil? So, when you look at these things, you see that what happens when you have a regime change is that there's a tremendous amount of wealth that is removed, redistributed, and consolidated, and brought together into one locale. So they're very effective for the redistribution and concentration of wealth. And that's what I think at this point is these regime change things, is they're just great systems for extraction.
It's a heist.
It's
really just a heist.
Heist.
It's a heist that ends with, they steal the stuff. They steal and murder and plunder, and they call it revolution.
So, I'm pretty cynical at this point. I think we all are.
And if you love cynics, I highly recommend Mark Sloboda.
Okay.
he's like professional cynic.
Okay.
Studying. He's in the same spaces as Pepe Escobar. So
I know the name. I know the name, Mark Sloboda. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
Guys.
All right, let's call it. It's 1:22.
Yeah, we've been going for a while. Wow,
but Celia, you got to come back. You're one of LOL.
I would love to. I want to be.
Every time you write something that kind of in our catchment, we're going to call you back if you're not too busy.
Yeah, I think we're on.
What time is it? What time is it where you are?
We're in the ops. We're 7:30. It's 7:23 p.m. in the evening.
Oh, okay. So that's reasonable. Okay, we're gonna grab you back if we can.
I'd love to. And it's kind of fun for me. Last thing I'll say is that we're all on this. I thought I was not at all on the left because I was battling with the left with the AIDS thing, because that was a left. The people who were trying to crush people exactly like me, they were all left, right? So I was and I'd come out of Sweden, and most of us were not left because the government was social democrat, and we were always fighting against the government. So I, for years, thought, I'm not left. I'm sort of conservative, and now I just feel like, well, I think I've been sent back to because I was very, very quote unquote left when I was very young, like most young people are. And who knows? Who cares? It doesn't matter anymore, left, right. I'm just saying that. For me, seeing what the so-called conservative, what's happened to them, they all just went completely Zionist zombie. So it threw me, and a lot of us have experienced this. Like I remember when Mark Crispin Miller, who's a good friend, when the left was acting psychotic over COVID, he was like, help me, how do I get it? What am I? How do I get away from these people? Tell me about the Christians or something. So a lot of people feel politically thrown up, like it's like you're being ejected from a train car. Like where am I now? I'm in a field. I don't recognize anything. So it's not often that I get invited to left. I mean, it's precisely never that I get invited to WBAI. Although Gary has always been willing to talk to me, but I've been this complete outsider.
He loves you. He worships you. He loves you.
Gary was the first. Without Gary, nothing. I mean, in terms of the AIDS thing and the Fauci thing, he's brilliant. He's unbelievable. I mean, how Gary is almost like another species.
Yeah. He is superior human. I mean, his brain and his ability to recollect, and process information is astounding.
Astounding. Astounding. I know. And the whole thing with Gary and WB, I followed it for years. I don't know exactly what's been going on lately, but yeah, I would say, here's what I'm really trying to say to put a little bit of a fine point on it. So Gary identifies as a progressive leftist, but the things he has always stood for really are anathema to the the left, I don't know what to call it, like the Naomi Klein left, whatever.
The Democratic Party left.
Yeah, I guess it's the elite left or something. They're like they love public health and pharma and everything, Fauci and media, everything's true. They hate, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Absolutely.
It's weird.
We find a tremendous amount of infiltration. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is controlled opposition.
Yeah.
So, and we actually did a show where I really went into the origins of controlled opposition. And the earliest example I could find was the Roman Empire and how they would conquer foreign lands and then, seed it with people who are supposedly anti-Roman, but really, followed orders. And that was, where they really started coming up with this concept of controlled opposition. So when you take apart things like the Democratic Party or the Green Party or the, socialists or whatever it is, you find infiltrators, and the infiltrators do very well. You don't need a lot of infiltrators because they know how to manipulate other people. So, you put a few of them in there, and then this is a human nature. And this is a really horrible thing. I don't want to go into this topic, but, this whole mob mentality.
Yeah.
Where people want to belong to something so badly.
Yeah.
That even if it's a horrible thing, like beating up someone or, these horrible things, they do it because they need this sense of belonging.
Totally.
And so, you get a situation where you throw a couple of infiltrators, maybe CIA officers in, let's say, the Green Party, for example.
Yeah, chaos agents. Yeah.
And you get a couple in there, and then next thing you know, there's a whole bunch of people kind of doing what they say because somehow they're able to advance some people or they have some money coming in, and and people want to be on the in crowd.
Yes,
people don't want to talk.
They're bullies. It's
people don't want to talk to the person like at the lunch table sitting alone. They don't want to be associated with that loser. They want to sit with the cool kids.
That's me.
It's me. It's me. It's all of us. We're all sitting alone at the reject table. In high school, we had something called the freaks. Okay, and that was my social circle, the freaks, and it was basically the people who, were artists, musicians, intellectuals. We weren't really part of the greasers. We weren't working on cars. We weren't sports activists. We weren't sports activists. We couldn't do the goth or the what was the other one?
The Vamps or
whatever it is. It was too much work to do the hair. I mean, like, I forget what was the punks. I mean,
punks.
That was like my generation. There was no way I could get my hair to stand up or would. It was just too much work. So, so if you didn't really have a tribe, you sat at the freak table, which just meant you didn't have a tribe. So, I mean, again, we're at the freak table. It's okay. I think there's a lot of us at the freak table these days. And I think there's more of us than them.
We're just like squishy human people with hearts, and we want to have a sense of humor. We don't like seeing pain inflicted. It doesn't mean we're better than anybody else, but we're just determinedly human. I think I know I can say that about myself. Like I'm a big fan of humanity. I think when they're going to miss us when we're gone. The Yuval Harari monster class, like
your heart comes across in your writing. I mean, it's touching. It comes across.
Thank you.
I just want to say that it comes across. You have, a big heart.
They want us to be coarsened and brutal and mean. Everything is, bash down the other guy so you can have a moment of relief from what they've brainwashed you to think your life is all about. Like, you put down other people, you put down yourself. I mean, of course I have to do it sometimes, but it's become our whole culture. It's like, rage and ugliness. It's ugliness. It's like ugly, like A Clockwork Orange, or what's that other book? Lord of the Flies,
Oh.
And that's what I wish we would all just snap out of. Like, stop with the ugliness. Stop, stop, stop. I mean, we'll have to direct it at some very deserving targets, but not punching down so much on regular people. That's what I hate. Gosh.
And that's our entertainment. I mean, that's what reality TV is a lot of the times. And people love it. They can't not watch it. They won't look away. And then when you look at a lot of YouTube stuff too, you know, some of the bigger YouTubers, that what sells is really the drama when they start talking trash about each other.
Well, see, I watch cat videos, so I don't cat videos.
Well, I'm talking about the big
videos.
ones, but like the people who are getting millions and millions of views all the time.
Jamie loves animal videos too.
Okay,
I like cat videos. Yeah, cat videos are fantastic.
I don't know. Did you see his photo on his WhatsApp? Oh, I don't think you did. It's a cat with a piece of cheese on its head. It's very cute. And you had a cute one too. You had the cat all dressed up in orange.
Yeah. Oh, that was an IAI cat. Yeah, that one.
That was cute.
Like, what is your problem? And I was like, I'm sorry. I think it was funny. I'm standing my ground on this one. Yeah, I have two Spanish cats and one American cat, and the two Spanish cats, I adopted them as kittens here in Spain, and one of them actually eats olives. It's hilarious. So I'm like, are you just trying to prove you're Spanish? He eats everything. It's olives. All right, guys.
All right.
We should wrap it up. We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Soon,
This was fantastic.
Thanks.
Really fun.
Thank
really
you.
We were supposed to keep it short, Gloria, but we did an extra hour and a half.
I know. It's really hard. It's you know. Also, I haven't seen Celia. In a few years.
We're
right?
gonna catch up. I'm gonna call you
in a few years, right, Celia?
No.
It was the birthday party for the Maguires. It was the Maguires' birthday party.
Yeah.
On the ship.
It's a year and a half on that unbelievably insane boat. Yeah. We'll talk about that another time. We have to figure out what happened to that boat and that.
Oh yeah.
Or not. I don't know.
Well,
all right.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. This is Left on Left, presented by Pasta to Go. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Celia. This was a fantastic time. I enjoyed it. And we'll see you later. I'm going to be on the Homeless Left later today. So there's more shows to come. And that's with Matt Weinglass. And oh, by the way, this was the 99th episode. So the next episode is episode 100.
And I'll talk to Pasta. He's already yelled at me, said I have too much headroom in my camera. Yeah, you know, that's the thing.
I was trying to point to you during the show, but you
beloved
you weren't seeing me.
Family and friends, you know, they don't look at your show or you and say, "Oh, you're doing great. This is fantastic." They look at it and go, "What's wrong? You can do this better.
Fix that. Yeah.
Get a better microphone, Gloria. Get another light. Fix your chair. Come on."
I think you look great. All right, guys.
All right, well, let's wrap this up and get out of here because you know,
I'm gonna go eat something. All right.
Yeah.
We've got things to do.
I'll miss you, but we'll be together again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you guys next week.